Alrighty. Well, hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium here live on YouTube. My name's Patrick. I work at the aquarium in social media, and we are live right now in a continuation of our Ed Ricketts Memorial Week here at the Ed Ricketts Memorial here along Cannery Row. And we are joined this time once more by Mr. Jim Covell, the man, the myth, the legend. We are here talking about this gentleman, Ed Ricketts. We've been talking about him all of this week. He passed away 70 years ago this year on May 11th, and he was born 121 years ago on May 14th. And this is where the end of Ed Ricketts' life happened, but the beginning of his legacy onto all of us. And so we're gonna turn it over to Jim right now and just talk a little bit about this spot, what happened here, what's the story here for Ed.
So let me set the stage a little bit with just some of the times leading up to this. A lot of people have heard about the Lock of the Sea of Cortez. That was a famous trip that John Steinbeck and Ed Ricketts took in 1941. They chartered the Western Flyer, a sardine fishing purse seiner from Monterey, went down to the Gulf of California, and Ed did a lot of collecting. Steinbeck rode up the trip. It was a big success for both of them. When they get back here, the United States eventually enters World War II, and Ed, having been in the Army Medical Corps during World War I, gets pulled back into service with the Army. Now, at 50 years old, he's a little too old to go overseas to fight, and with his background, they put him to work in the labs over at Fort Ord, running samples for the GIs there and so on. And at the same time, during World War II, gasoline was rationed, tires were rationed, so Ed couldn't get the fuel and tires to do his road trips up and down the coast to go collecting. We had pretty much shut down a lot of his collecting activities. So the war years were pretty tough for Ed. But then 1945, World War II is over, and Ed can get back and fire up his collecting business, and Cannery Row had been published. And people started buying copies of that, and they realized that, hey, Doc in Cannery Row, that's our own Ed Ricketts. And Ed was kind of an overnight celebrity around here. So life is good. He's got his business going again, and is enjoying that celebrity status. 3 short years later, May 8th, 1948, Ed is driving his new Buick up Drake Avenue here. And this is, in that day, this was the railroad through here, the Southern Pacific Railroad. Today, it's the bike and hiking trail. But back then, this is where the Del Monte Express ran through. Ed's car stalled on the tracks here, and he's trying to get his car started, trying to get it off the tracks. Meanwhile, Del Monte Express comes barreling through here. You can see this is kind of an S-curve. It's hard to see that train very far out. And I think by the time the train saw Ed and Ed saw the train, it was too late for him to get out of the car. The locomotive came along, hit the car with Ed in it, and drug it some distance until the train finally stopped. When it stopped, Ed tumbled out of the car. He was still alive, but he'd been very seriously injured. He was rushed off to the community hospital here. It was in downtown Monterey in those days. And now, remember, Ed's best friend was John Steinbeck. People around here wired Steinbeck and said, your best friend Ed Ricketts has been gravely injured in a serious accident. It doesn't look good. You need to get out here immediately. And immediate in those days took a long time. That was on May 8th. It took John Steinbeck 3 days to get here. He didn't reach Monterey until May 11th, and unfortunately he got here just a few hours after Ed had passed away. Steinbeck never got to say goodbye to his lifelong best friend, and it had a profound effect on John Steinbeck for many years there on out.
Right, a lot of John Steinbeck's work inspired by the time spent with Ed out on adventures and talking philosophy and discussing their various theories on life, and it changed overnight for the both of them. But the death of Ed Ricketts really begins the life of his scientific and cultural legacy to the area, and we have some evidence, I should say, right here on the bust here of Ed Ricketts, of that continuing love that this community has for their favorite marine biologist.
So in 1997, the community got together and they put together this bust of Ed Ricketts and put it on this spot, close to Drake Avenue, where he was killed in that accident. And classic Ed Ricketts. He's got his fountain pen and his magnifying lens. There's a sea star in his hands here. And people take care of Ed every day. He's got fresh flowers in his hands. Now, friends of Ed's knew that Ed rarely went outside without his head covered, without a hat on. He had something about never getting his head wet. So from time to time I'll come by and Ed's wearing a ball cap or a cowboy hat, or during the holidays maybe even a Santa hat. Keep his head covered here while he's outside. So
I'm sure he appreciates that, yeah, going forward. And so in this location, there are a few, you folks can come and visit Ed if you wanted to. This is the Monterey Plaza Hotel. Cannery Row continues on. That direction goes around the corner. Over half a mile away is the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And I try to salute Ed as often as I can when I'm here on the bike path. But a few things that can tell you where you're located. This is one of the few places along the bike path you can still see where that railroad was going. And we have this odd little piece of signage here that was not around when Ed was here. Might have changed a few things if there was a railroad crossing sign here back in the day.
Yeah, from talking to people that lived here at that time, they're saying there was no crossing signal here. That might have prevented that accident. Who knows? The crossing signal went in after that terrible accident here. It's kind of ironic that it's still here included in this memorial for Ed Ricketts.
Right, and Jim, we should also point out that you have in your hands not flowers, but a very important book as well that tells that story of the last few days of Ed Ricketts here. His important novel there, Between Pacific Tides, a marine biology textbook, and a philosophical guide to the tide pools. And there's a note here in the second edition.
So, and of course, being meticulous about everything, Ed found some errors in the original Between Pacific Tides, and he wanted those corrected. So he was working with Stanford Press to put out a revised edition that they called the second edition here. And there's a little just publisher's note at the end of the preface here that the tragic death of Ed Ricketts on May 12th, actually it should be May 11th, following an automobile accident near his home in Pacific Grove, prevented the final check of this second edition. Dr. Ricketts, I think that was an error as well.
Yeah.
Ed Ricketts had just finished the revision of page proofs and returned it to the press with his copy for the new index. It is the task of the press staff to prepare the pages for press without benefit of the author's further approval. And that's June 8th, just a month after.
Just a month after.
Unfortunately, Ed never lived to do that final approval, never lived to see not only this edition, but 5 editions now of Between Pacific Tides, a big part of the legacy.
And he also passed away just a few short months before Steinbeck and Ricketts were slated to go up to the outer coast and go and complete the trilogy. Between Pacific Tides is California, Oregon, and Washington. Log from the Sea of Cortez is Mexico's coast on the Baja Peninsula. And they were about to head up north to Canada and onto Alaska to do the outer shores. And that did not happen because of this accident. Yeah.
So who knows what additional stories would have come out of that next trip. I'm sure it would have been another great book.
Absolutely. Well, hey, YouTube, thank you so much for following us here this week, learning more about Ed Ricketts. Oh, the question was, how did Ed die? And we mentioned it a little bit earlier. We're here at this railroad crossing where the road goes up and the railroad goes across, and Ed stalled out on the tracks, and in trying to get his car started, didn't see the train coming and was unfortunately hit by the train that came through. Wasn't going very fast, but a lot of momentum behind it, and he passed away a few days later, and he was 50 years old at the time. Yeah, just shy of his 51st birthday. But so anyway, YouTube, we wanted to mention thank you for being there. And Jim, what are maybe some parting words for us here? We've been learning about Ed Ricketts, about his life. We're here at the spot where he met his end, but his legacy continues on with us. He's still very much alive in the hearts and minds of the community. What can we take away from the life of Ed and our role now as the aquarium and as the folks watching this video for the ocean, what Ed would have wanted?
You know, with Ed's love for the ocean and that close personal connection, and I think he wished that for everybody, that we all understood more about the ocean. But looking in the perspective we have now, all these years later, Ed saw the overfishing of the sardines in Monterey Bay. He saw pollution along the coastline and those impacts, and he could see how humans were really starting to have a significant impact on the ocean. And he was writing about that and talking about it, but he was kind of a lone voice in the wilderness back in the day. But now, with even more experience, and I feel like this is part of what we do at the aquarium, we're helping people really understand that we can do a lot more to take better care of the oceans. And I think we're carrying on the work that Ed Ricketts started all that time ago, and helping people do a better job of looking out for ocean health and stuff.
Absolutely, Carla. He was definitely ahead of his time, and very well put. Jim, thank you so much, and thank you again, YouTube, for joining us here. If you want to see more of these videos, we did quite a few this week. We did 3 more with Jim. We can go from the great tide pool through the aquarium to the lab, and then now here at his memorial. But thank you so much, Jim, and maybe we'll do some more next year and throughout. Ed lives on, and we'll have some more stories for you. Thank you so much, everyone, for following us here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium on YouTube. Thank you for watching this week of Ed Ricketts stories, and we hope to see you again soon at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. From the tide pool to the stars, back to the tide pool again. Thanks for being there, and we'll see you again soon.